Hey, what's up, everybody? This is GameLogIQ from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, back with another episode of Talking About Games, or TAG, as we call it around here, these parts. This is, I think, what will be the inaugural episode where I'm kind of taking the show in a different direction. So I've spent decades talking about the games industry and the market and focusing on news and all that sorts of stuff. And over the last few years, I've just kind of gotten tired of it. And I've also come to the realization that people don't actually want to learn about the industry in most cases, that they are very platform-centric and mostly interested about news about their own platforms. So what we're really trying to do with Talking About Games now is take it in the direction of being more of kind of a talk show and topical, what one of my co-hosts on E2KG calls navel gazing. And it's not normally our favorite thing to do on Enough to Keep Going, but I decided I wanted to take that content, which I still love and I still enjoy, and move it over to Talking About Games and see if that maybe catches fire. And if I enjoy it and my guests enjoy it, and I'm hoping it will be the start of something new. So here with me tonight for this 17th episode of the new episodes are my really good friends, CSmnithShine, Crystal from Twitter, and on Blue Sky. I guess, are you only on Blue Sky now?
I still have a Twitter account, but I don't use Twitter anymore.
What's Twitter?
X,
Right.
whatever shit is called now.
And that other voice you hear on the mic is my good friend Gurnico, or Gurney. Gurney, how you doing?
What's up? I'm doing pretty good, man. It's good to be back on a talk show about video games. I love video games. I love to talk about video games, and you guys are good people to talk about video games with. So thanks for having me on, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. I couldn't think of two better people to have these conversations with. I'm hoping that I can get you guys back fairly regularly, or at least very frequently. Tonight's topic, we're going to be talking through our relationship with video games. It's going to be a discussion that kind of focuses on our life and times with video games, if you will. We're going to talk through some stories about what games have meant to us, how games have shaped our lives, weird moments or just unique moments, either in game or somehow associated with gaming or the gaming lifestyle, and games that helped us maybe through tough times. Before we get started with that, Crystal, do you mind giving just like a 2-minute kind of blurb on just kind of who you are as a gamer and how you got into gaming?
Who I am as a gamer? That's a really hard question to answer. I don't know how to answer that. I fucking love video games, man. And I like people that play video games. I don't know. That's very hard. It's very hard for me to define myself. It's easier for other people to decide what they think I am. I think we're in the, we don't want to use the C word, right? We talked about this before, the casual word. I would say that we're definitely not the average gamer. I mean, I game a lot and I play a lot of different shit and I try new things out, and that's the best I can do. I really don't know.
Well, I'll throw out a label just to kind of help kind of seat the audience. When I think of you as a gamer, and you know, when you and I kind of met each other and the time that we spent going back and forth together, one of the things I think about you is that you are one of the most insightful people in terms of kind of what I think of as kind of the spirituality of games. Your relationship with games, and please don't take this as like me dictating my answer to you for a lot of these questions tonight. Your relationship with games, or your insight into games, tends to break through and past like the mechanical and the narrative, like these typical common structures that we have come up with in this discussion of games, particularly right in terms of kind of frameworks and scaffolding that we typically talk about games to get through like the review discussion or like a 5-paragraph thesis about a video game. Like you're one of the best and one of the people who most like when I hear you speak on a game, the things that you bring up are like your typical thing that you bring up is exactly not the typical thing that most people bring up when they're describing a video game.
Oh my God, you are kind of right now that I think about it. I'm like, video games, it's like I don't know how to articulate it, but it's this depth within me. It's like, it's a feeling, it's a vibe. It's this whole construct that's more than just like graphics pretty, mechanics nice, story good.
In fact, I think, just talking about you, I think of you as the gaming empath, right? Like it's almost like, I feel like if you see a video game, it's kind of like Neo seeing the Matrix, but like you don't, like you see the aura of a video game. Like when you're looking, like when the rest of us see like pixels and polygons and shaders, right? You look at a game and you see like aura is kind of how I think about it.
I am completely adopting this as my new like entire personality. I'm going to trademark that and everything. I love it. I have to agree too.
Bro, it's making me emotional just listening to him talk about you. Like it's true.
How do you think I
It's
feel?
true. It's like a blues musician, man. Like he doesn't hear the music. Like he is the music. He experiences the music. You're like that with games.
Well, Gurney, let's shift the focus to you and ask you the same question, like 2-minute blurb ish of who you are as a gamer and like how you came into video games.
Well, it's my longest standing relationship, I would say, besides my mother and my father. I was like 3 years old when I picked up a controller for the first time, and it's one of those things, man. It's ebbed and flowed over the years. The way I've thought about video games has continued to evolve. I try to challenge myself on how I think about them. I feel like I've been a lot of different archetypes within the gaming community. But now I'm just a gamer who just, as I was saying before we started the show, I feel like I, as a person, am not all of that interesting. Like it's not who I am, but it's like, all I think about is games, dude. Like, yes, I love my family. I work. I do all that stuff, but I am thinking about games literally all the time. It's almost like my religion, and some people could make fun of me for that, but I don't really care because it's how I found myself is through games. Like games to me are what I use to figure out who I am and where I'm at, and it's how I relate with the world. So that
a couple things I want to throw in there to say you're not that interesting. That's not true, because this guy does some amazing like mashups. He'll perform music, he'll make music, he sings beautifully, he plays guitar, he does other instruments himself. He's very interesting. And
I'm glad you think that.
And oh my God, in your video, the God of War Ragnarok video review, like the insight that you did as being a parent, that was fucking gold, dude. I mean, that is one of the best insightful pieces I've seen.
Yeah, I appreciate that too, because that's the thing is, I feel like we're like one of the first generations, along with Logic, that have really kind of taken gaming from the beginning and carried it with us into our adult lives. And you're kind of seeing what it is truly like to have like gamers who were born and bred into it, and they're living their lives and raising their children still being gamers. And like that's pretty interesting and fascinating. I think like just our generation as a whole and how we approach and experience games and talk about them. As Logic was saying, I think a lot of us are kind of sick and tired of the more of like the culture surrounding games. A lot of it is polarizing these days, especially on social media like Twitter and all of that jazz. So I think for us to have these sort of spaces and places like Blue Sky where we can talk more vulnerably about games, I think that's really where I'm at as a gamer now. I want to connect with people on a real level, not so sensationalized and all that jazz.
Yeah, I think people that don't play video games aren't aware of the community that exists within video games. Like the people that you meet, and it's lifelong friends, and I've met so many of them, you guys included, through gaming.
It runs deep, man. Like just an example, I was at a wedding renewal, like they were renewing their vows. It was kind of like a party, and I got there and I didn't know a single person, but we sat at the table and then video games got brought up. And then all of a sudden, all the gamers started flocking to the table. And like, we didn't know who each other was, but by the end of it, we felt like we had known each other for a long time, because those experiences just kind of pull you together in a way that I don't think anything else really can.
Well, I think what gives it an advantage, or at least makes it different, is like you want to meet people that have the same hobbies as you. If you golf, you'll meet people on the golf course, right? If you like painting, you'll meet people at the paint shop or at the art class. Like that's easy. But gaming, with the ability of it like being as remote as it is, you meet so much more. Like it's a diverse group of people from all. Geography is not a limitation for us.
Absolutely.
You guys are hitting on some great drum beats, which I think are going to come up throughout this conversation tonight. Gurney, I want to put one label on you too, from my perspective. One of the things I love about our relationship, which is, you know, ebbed and flowed and sometimes consistent. We both have families and responsibilities and stuff, but what I particularly love that I've had the opportunity to observe with you is the very first time that we podcasted together, right? And all of us got together. I think there was a line in that show where I mentioned, if people are lucky as gamers, they will become lifelong gamers and they will have an opportunity to look back and see these evolutions that they go through, right? That you're not the same gamer like in your 30s that you were in your teens, right? And if you're fortunate, that you're also going to be able to witness and look back and see when those changes are deliberate, when those changes sometimes happen just because there's other stuff going on in your life and it drives you in a certain direction, and you can't really tell like what the change is when it's like in the moment when it's happening. But 10 years later, then you look back and you go, oh, that's like I was never into that thing before, and then like I've just accepted like over this last decade that's like how I game. But now, no, wait, let me think back 20 years ago. And like, no, that wasn't like I stumbled into it. And so I've had the opportunity through social media with you to kind of witness that journey. Right. And it has been soulful. It has been deep. It has been, like I said, with Crystal, it's been an opportunity to observe somebody who's not crop dusting the surface of the gaming art, like as a theme, but you are, if Crystal is kind of it's kind of interesting because I think Gurdy, I think you're also playing Clair Obscur Expedition 33 now too, right?
Oblivion remastered right now. Actually.
Okay. So the big bad in Clair Obscur is the paintress, and so if Crystal is kind of the paintress and the gaming empath, like I think of you as like this spiritual like chef of games, like a gourmet chef, like you have an ability to like put a game in your mouth like as a piece of steak and taste like 8 different flavors, right? When most of us can just like we're lucky if we can taste 2, right?
No empty calories, baby.
Yeah, you're able to taste like the marbling of the beef and like so it's been great. Also, as you've like leapt, right, as you've gone from like console to PC and like done some content creation, like seeing the material and the type of stuff that you cover and hearing those messages, and yeah, it's been an awesome experience, like watching your evolution.
Can we rate you now? Can we are we allowed to brag about you for a minute?
Sure.
It's only fair.
Okay, so let me think. I'm an empath, and then Gurney's a chef.
It's obvious what logic is.
Well, I mean, the name Logic is you're literally, I mean, we know each other well outside of gaming, and you're one of the smartest motherfuckers that I've ever met, and I love to watch you think and work and like how your brain processes, and I love your ability to constantly maintain rational thoughts. like you're able to separate how you emotionally feel about something from the rest. And I like the way that you blend that all together when you're talking about stuff.
He's like the conduit that is able to bridge the gap between the physical world and the spiritual world, and he like pulls those things together, because without him we're just like these nebulous beings floating off doing our own thing, and he's like anchoring him down and like making use of it, and like he has a way of like turning that spiritual side of it into like pragmatic.
He is a bit philosophical in the way sometimes he'll approach like sometimes he'll ask you questions, like no matter what it is, not just gaming, like just general in life. And it's like, he'll ask you those questions and it goes, oh, damn, homie.
He opens doors that you didn't know you had, right?
So we got a philosopher, a chef, and then an empath. So I think we the OGs.
Well, that is a great intro and lead into our discussion. So with that, let me proceed with asking you guys some questions. So Gurney, we'll start with you. Talk to us about a story about what certain games have meant to you. And just to kind of give you like an on-ramp into this, the way like I processed this, like to come up with my own answer was like, I made a list of like standout games in my memory that like had stuck out to me, right? And I didn't rank them or filter them. I was like, just make the list, right? And then I looped back and I was like, okay, which ones of these like really had an impact, right, in terms of like the game and what it meant to me. So I'm not sure if you process it the same way, but I just kind of wanted to give an intro to like the question before you get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said before we started the show, I was a little stressed out about this because once I started going through all the games, I'm like, man, there are literally so many games that have impacted me that I kind of have to put it into an actual like tier list. So for me, I have to start with a game that probably means the most to me, but the one that I think the least about now, which would be Super Mario Bros. And without that game, I don't really know what would have happened with gaming, because I was probably 3 going on 4, and my grandfather had just gotten divorced. Like there was like this scandal, and so my grandpa was divorced and he was like moving out on his own. He lived in a trailer, and all I remember in my head as like this late 3-year-old, 4-year-old is them sitting me in the corner with an NES for the first time, and they put Super Mario Bros. In my hand. And all I remember, it wasn't like this memory of me doing incredibly well or whatnot, but it's that realization of like, as I'm pushing these buttons, I'm controlling this thing on the screen. And like, there was something inside of me that awoken even at a young age to where I can't remember my life without video games after that point. But it was one of those things, like, I can't remember not having an NES after that night. And Super Mario Bros. Was one of those games where obviously there's no loading, whatnot back in the day. So you're starting the levels over and over and over again. And I just remember my dad being so impressed by me at like 4 or 5 that I was able to blow through some of these Mario levels, because that's what my brain was absorbing. But yeah, so Super Mario Bros. is a important game, because without it, I don't know what my journey would have been like. And the fact that it was my grandfather that introduced me to video games kind of blows my mind, because I'm like, what were you doing with an NES? Like, I wonder how, like, why, I mean, in my head, I guess I process it that because he's newly divorced, he needs something to keep himself occupied. But like, my grandfather was like religious through and through. And it's funny because later in life, he always gave me kind of like crap that like video games were like my religion, like kind of this deal, because that's like what I was in. Like, I mean, I was just like a ADD problem child in school, bad grades, but dude, Super Mario like was it anchored me. It basically saved me from I have no idea what, because my life without games, I don't know what it would have been like. So yeah, so Super Mario Bros. Was the doorway into whatever it is that I became with games, you know?
So when you were playing Super Mario, was there and I know I think like generally you kind of talked about like this moment in the game in Toto, right? But was there like was there anything else like in the game, like a certain level or anything that like really like that you like sticks out in your memory as like this is the moment in time where
Oh, so with Mario or just another game?
Yeah, with Mario.
Yeah, so with Mario, I think like there was nothing else to compare it to beforehand. So, and the fact that it was weird, because I'm a kid, I have no labels or ideas of what a mushroom is yet. So I didn't even know that it is a mushroom that I'm like eating and turning big. All I know is like, yo, hit that box, and then this power up pops up, and then I get big, and then it's like jump on that thing, and I'm squishing these Goombas, which I didn't even know they're called Goombas or whatnot. And like, I think as a kid, what I loved was the feedback of the game, like jumping up and smashing the bricks, and the bricks are flying, and the music is playing, and you're just like you're going into these tunnels, and I'm like, this is just it's just so addictive. And then like your only goal is to get to the end, to survive. That's literally it. It's like a more complex version of Pac-Man. You're being chased and you're jumping on these platforms, and I think it's just honestly like, you know, like when you line yourself up and you're running and you try to get to the top of the flag, and like you know, and the fireworks are going off, and it's just like that's all I needed. You know what I mean? Like that, it's wild to me that that's all I needed, because like I don't it's hard to fathom how like where video games are at today, and all of the serotonin and dopamine going off in your brain, and how much is happening on the screen, that people are like, this sucks. And it's like all I needed back in the day was like some music, some feedback, and some fireworks, bro. And that was enough for me. But that was also a foundational moment, because I'm a child who has no understanding of the world around me. Like I'm forming my reality, and Mario was the lens for which I started to form that reality, I guess, which is kind of crazy and weird when you think about it. But yeah, man. So I think there was just enough going on in Mario to set off those receptors in my brain.
Yeah, it sounds to me like in my like first introduction to video games is very similar. But it sounds like to me, I mean, I was a little older. The game was also a little older, but it sounds like to me, for you and I both, that it was a matter of like that introduction to video games hitting at that formative time where you've got like bubblegum brain as a child, and you're very like willing to onboard, like you're heavily engaged in the process of learning, like about the world around you.
No criticisms whatsoever. Just pure experience.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing that I often talk about. It's sad. It's like you talked about like, and I think what you're really getting at is how kind of jaded like gamers, particularly on social media, are today, that they get these like AAA $100 million, $200 million experiences that like, you know, an army of 300 developers worked on for 7 years, and they're like, oh, this is horrible. Right? Like,
which is just trash. Holding on to that, because this is a really important idea to me. And I was thinking about this earlier while we're on this topic. So do you think that gamers who come into these modern games not having experienced anything before, I'm curious how their brains take it in versus someone like you and I and Crystal, who kind of had a development and an appreciation compounded and layered. And that's kind of like, you have these different sides, right? Where you have the people like you and I who have experienced a lot. We've experienced a lot. So it takes a lot now to impress us. But at the same time, if you can kind of peel back the layers that you've built on your brain, you can kind of get back to Eden as in a sense. And that's like kind of me, that's like a core philosophy, getting back to Eden. Like how can I get back to that place where I just experience a game as pure experience? But what I'm saying though is like these new gamers, because you have young kids who all they know is Fortnite, right? That was their introduction into video games, and they're not impressed by what they see, a lot of them. And then there's the old heads who aren't impressed. So like there's this middle ground somewhere that I would like to find, of how do you appreciate something so complex these days? Because you kind of need to develop some sort of a framework and a structure to know what you're experiencing to appreciate it. Otherwise, you're just judging it based on, I don't know, man. You know what I'm saying? Like these games now are kind of harder to judge in the same sense of like a Mario used to be.
I mean, I think what I've told myself and taught myself over the last like few years, is that I think the sad truth of the matter is it's less a matter of the technology, like in like the world they're being introduced to, and it's more a matter of just kind of that whole intro that we just went through, right? Where I referred to you guys as certain types of archetypes, right? As gamers, I think the only people who are going to appreciate that are those people who are literally archetypes in their approach to games. And at a more simplistic level, it's people who are really in love with the art. And that's what I constantly talk about, right? The gamers who experience something amazing, right? Perhaps imperfect, right? But amazing. And look at a game and say that this game is mid or this game is trash, or just people who just don't appreciate art. Right. And they don't have the mental sinew and the capability to put it through an interpretive lens and see through it, and they're totally obsessed with how what games they're seen playing and what things they're being seen in terms of talking about games. The gamers, and this is what makes this so hard, because we all kind of came online to like find other gamers and other people like us and to have these conversations. The problem is that the biggest population of people who probably have the greatest capability to have these conversations aren't online. Right. They're PC gamers. They're in Steam communities, on Steam forums, talking about video games. It's been hilarious this week. I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent.
No, it's good. I love it. I'm into it.
It's been hilarious this week to the last few weeks to see the reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2. And I know that there were feelings about it, and like part of those feelings were, quite frankly, like Nintendo's fumbling of some material that they're just not accustomed to dealing with. Like they're not accustomed. They're really from a company and from a culture perspective, they're not set up to come to a direct and do a bunch of techno babble, right? About like, you know, VRAM and LFC and VRR. Like, I mean, they were kind of out of their depth, and I get it, right? It's an evolution for them too, right? Certainly talking to their customer base, right, who have historically not cared about specs, right? And now they're speaking about specs. But at any rate, it's been hilarious to kind of see the dynamic, because, you know, and I'll just paint social media with some incredibly broad strokes. You have the PlayStation and Xbox people, the vast majority of whom are just absolutely determined to be miserable online. Right? That's their focus. Their focus isn't having fun playing video games. Their focus isn't, a comment that I made is like, look, in the span of kind of 30 days-ish, we've gotten Assassin's Creed, South of Midnight, and Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, which is just, to me, is a momentous time in history on the landscape of gaming, that we have gotten 3 narratives that are period pieces, right, steeped in history, that are era-specific, that invoke all of these tones of like different societies and world building, and it's an amazing time. I can't remember when we've had kind of an event horizon in such a compressed period of time, right? Like the closest thing that I could think about it was like the last year of the PlayStation 4, when we got Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2, right?
Yes.
And those things were spread out by, I think there were 3 or 4 months, or so between their launch dates. So yeah, it's just a matter of, you know, the people who there is some telemetry on, and you can hear them and see them talking about video games. The vast majority of them are the exact type of people who don't actually appreciate video games as art, which is why
wild,
we get,
man.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's like we're living in a renaissance now, and some people can't even see it because they've been so steeped in their own tea that they can't look around and appreciate other things, which that is kind of the mold I've been trying to break about myself. Like, I mean, I was caught up in it for a long time, but then I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Who am I? Like, I've let these brands take me over, which is partly why I switched to PC, because I'm like, I don't want to be it's not that I don't love these things, but it's just, I don't want to be associated with them anymore because they keep me from appreciating the games. And that's all it's ever been about to me, has been the games, dude. Like, it's always been about the games. I don't care about what platform it's on. But I care about the games. Simple as that. Which kind of to bring everything back onto the track. What about one of you guys? What's one of your games that influenced you?
Yeah, let's get Crystal on the mic on that topic.
The first gaming, I mean, the first game I ever played was Joust. It's not a phenomenal game. It's fucking Joust.
Atari?
Yep. An Atari 3000. I mean, it was one little joystick. It was one button and a little joystick. And that, just like with Gurney, that was my journey. That was my journey to falling in love with gaming. My uncle brought it over and slapped it. I was 1985, so I was 4, and he slapped it in there with this some tank game, and I was like, oh, a guy on an ostrich that barely looks like a guy on an ostrich with the fucking stick. And I just remembered the music and the little noise the little ostrich makes.
What is Joust? I've heard of it, but what is it?
You fucking boink things. You got to get eggs and not let the other things get you. You got to fucking boink stuff and then don't get boinked. And it was so boinked. Like, these things were so rudimentary in their design compared to now, but it worked. And I fell in love with the fact that it was interactive. Like, passive entertainment for me was just less exciting. Like, yeah, I can read, I can watch TV, or I can be in control of what's happening. So even if it's a linear story, you're in control of what you approach and when. You're in control of how much you explore and things like that. Oh,
look at this. He's pulling it up.
There it is.
So real Logic, did you also play Joust?
I did. Yeah, it was a big arcade title.
Look at you on your little flying.
I have a question for my elders here. Was there was there controversy going from like a joystick to just a D-pad and buttons, or was that like revolutionary in the time? Because it seems like the joystick would be like really cool, and then you're going from a joystick like to the NES eventually. What was that like? Were you old enough to like pick up on the conversation at the time? Or?
I wasn't old enough for that, like, to be something that I thought about. Because when did 1984? I mean, I was 4 when I started playing Joust, so I was probably about 6-ish. When did the Mario games come out?
So, it's kind of interesting because we were actually having this conversation the other day. Like I said, I've been immersed in talking about the business and the history of video games, sometimes to the extent that I don't like talking about it. But the other day we were talking about the video game market crash in the U.S. of 1983, and what the recovery from that was. And the recovery from that was the bringing over the Nintendo Entertainment System from Japan. And so the Nintendo Entertainment System had launched in Japan in, I think, 1984. So the funny thing is
that's why I got that Atari. He went out and bought. He must have given me his now not going to be used system.
Right. So it's kind of funny because that moment in history, that market crash, we as gamers, even the gamers who often refer to it generically as the video game market crash, but it was really the video game market crash in the United States. Everybody else was fine. Japan was fine. Europe was fine. Everybody else was still gaming. And then what brought us out of that slump was getting the Nintendo Entertainment System over here. And so that is the point in time where we went from joysticks, right? Because we had the Atari, we had the Odyssey 2, and the Intellivision, right? Which was like a paddle on top of a joystick, but it was still kind of a joystick. But when the Nintendo got over here, and then followed quickly by the Sega Master System, those were the guys who introduced the D-pads. So I think it wasn't. I mean, it was evolutionary, and people appreciated it, but it was I think it got lost in the, oh my God, the video game market is back kind of moment. And it was less of a, these days, I think, again, talking about, jaded gamers and social media, I think we get like super, like in our feelings about like controllers. Like there's the whole, PlayStation players like their sticks like side by side, and Xbox players insist that there is no better gamepad design than the offset thumbsticks, which what I personally prefer, right? But and then of course Nintendo's always doing something wackadoodle, right, with gamepads generally, until like Switch and Switch 2 they seem to have settled down. But yeah, back in the day, I think, like I said, it kind of got muted by us finally getting the video game industry back.
I never questioned it. I was little. He handed me when it was time to play Mario and the other games. Here's a controller, and it's
crazy. It's kind of crazy, man. We just kind of accepted things. I will say the one controller that stood out to me that felt revolutionary was well, obviously the 64 controller, but the Dreamcast controller with the triggers. I remember playing that for the first time and thinking, whoa, like that is nuts. The triggers changed everything, because it was like racing and like, yeah, man, that was cool.
And what did Nintendo have? 2 buttons? It was just A and B.
Just A and B and a D-pad.
It was
and select and start.
A and select start, and then we introduced 4 buttons, and then, like you said, we got the triggers and the bumpers, and
oh my God, it just kept going.
It evolved to the point that you can do so many more mechanics because you have so many more options with all those buttons, and you just couldn't do that.
Which then. Controllers haven't had like a great leap in a long time, probably, right? Like since PS2 was probably PS2 and the original Xbox, kind of like.
Sorry.
No,
it for me, the leap is, how do I articulate it? The features within the controller.
Sure.
The controllers don't necessarily need a complete revamp, but like the dual sense, what it can do with the haptic feedback, and what's it called? Gurney?
I can feel rain in my hands.
Yeah,
man.
And then when you like go to, there's a name for it where you go to pull the trigger,
the haptic feedback and the
resistive
triggers.
Yeah,
that takes, like, I feel like they figured out what design as far as like contouring, and they don't change that much, but it's the features that's where I think the industry is really changing now. Is all, I don't know how to articulate what they're called, but it's like these little.
They're refining and adding. I mean, when are we getting smell-o-vision? Because I feel like that's the one thing.
It's got to be next. I mean, we've got
one thing.
4K audio in our fucking ears now to play games, which is unreal, right? We've got those features. Now we've got VR, and now you've got systems like PS5 having VR. It's got to be smell. It's got to
smell. Well, Logic, I'm sure your first game didn't have smell-o-vision, did it?
No.
What was your first game?
My first game, which is actually not my answer to this question.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
No, that's fine. My first game was actually Pong. So on the original, the system my dad brought home, and my dad was like a big like corpo. Like he grew up in this era of like institutionalization of like growing up and going to work for like a big like multinational business, and like kind of being groomed, like growing up and like starting up like in like in the mailroom basically, and being groomed to like be promoted to do this, and then like when you get to a certain point, like being promoted like and transferred right to somewhere else. And so my memories of him was very often around, like he was always talking about the company store, right? Because that's where he would go and like get stuff to bring home, like little gifts for us. And then the one time he came home with the Magnavox Odyssey, right? And I was like, dude, what is this? Like, where'd you? He's like, the company store. And so that was my introduction to video games. But my actual answer to this question about what certain games meant to me, what I pulled out of my list was, I think each of the three of us has a very strong theme in our lives about being single player gamers, right? And I know Crystal, like you do a lot of social stuff, but I also know that you like you also find joy in that isolation, right, in a game and a story and the emotion and all that stuff. And so it's kind of funny, the period of time of the Xbox 360, which was just a heavily socially oriented platform. And I talk about it in context of history that we didn't realize it at the time, but there was really, as you mentioned, Gurney, like tonight, a renaissance. There was a renaissance of social gaming that happened that I think in the moment we thought was going to last forever. And it actually only lasted from 2005 until Call of Duty 2. And during that period of time, right, we went from the socialness of gaming, in particular on the Xbox platform, kind of meaning a thing and us having control of our lobbies and that kind of driving the societal fabric on Xbox Live to the introduction of Call of Duty 2, which is at least is the one that I remember did it in particular, that removed our control of our own lobbies and started sticking you in this like general public space of like randos, and then not being able to control with as much granularity like who you were gaming with. And lobbies started getting bigger, and then that's when like you started hearing like, you know, racial slurs on the mic, and like, you know, the one person who's in the background with like the Latin rap music, like, and yelling at their, yelling, and stuff in the background that you can't control, and another one with like death metal, like in the back, like in just like blaring in your like so that societal fabric broke down. And I realize now.
Don't forget the moms in the background hollering because their kids were. Yep. Will you shut up? Little Timmy, what are you playing?
So now I go back and I look at that time and I'm like, oh, like this was actually like a brief moment in time where like there was this utopia kind of online. And so a lot of my memories about what certain games meant to me come out of that era. But I think the biggest one was Project Gotham Racing 3, or PGR 3 as a lot of us refer to it. And it's a little, it strikes me a little bit because of where it came from, because on the original Xbox, it was just a weird moment in time, loosely associated with this, like PGR3 was, I was on a tour of like training for like 8 months. I had some really good friends who like, we kept going around to different training sites together. So we always like came over to each other's room and hung out. And I remember one of the big things, and again, it's weird how all these breadcrumbs wind up linking together. One of our big things was when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man came out, and all of us went to the movie theater together and watched Spider-Man. This was also, I don't know if they came out the same year, but somewhere around this time also Daredevil came out with Ben Affleck and Alicia Gardner, which was not a great movie, but like it's this weird like
it was great at the time.
Yes,
because we were like, hell yeah,
right.
Dude.
Right, and there were those of us who like Evanescence and like in Linkin Park, and like this was like the music of the time. And so I remember on the OG Xbox, you could rip your music CDs right onto the Xbox and play your MP3s off the Xbox hard drive as background music in your games. And so I didn't even know about Project Gotham Racing, the original, but PGR2 came out in this time. And that's what I remember. I remember ripping the Spider-Man soundtrack and the Daredevil soundtrack and having Evanescence and Linkin Park and all these tracks from like that time period. And
did that have Nickelback on it? A Hero?
Yes. It wasn't Nickelback. It was Chad Kroeger. So,
okay.
Like Chad, like the lead singer of Nickelback, did like a song with, I don't know who the actual band was who had but whatever. But it was like one of the big.
But that was on that soundtrack.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember that one.
Yeah. So here I am all emotionally charged around PGR2, which I had played like as a single player just by myself. And then I walk into the 360 generation, Xbox Live. I'd never really been as big of a social gamer. I'd done some LAN gaming like on PC, but like I didn't do a lot of it on the internet because like there were tons of cheaters on the internet. So again, there was this whole like revolution, right? But PGR3, we and I lived, this was also one of the, I think only twice in my life have I ever lived like 15 minutes from work, right? Everything else has been like a long drive or long commute. So I lived 15 minutes from work. I was kind of in a great place in my career where I had to do some very hard things, but then like when I wasn't off doing those hard things, I had a lot of control over my schedule. So I just remember, man, like Friday nights, like, knocking off at whatever time I knocked off. And it was so great because I could leave at 3 and get home, but I could also leave at I could also work till 6 on a Friday and still get home, right? And like order pizza and but yeah, like ordering pizza, ordering Chinese, having it delivered, sitting down in front of my 360, popping on the Xbox Live and like all your friends being there, man. And some nights, we would start with one game, but wind up in PGR3. Some nights we would just start in PGR3. And like we would, they were so like, I remember like it didn't happen a lot, but like I remember like 1 or 2 nights like literally playing until sunrise, and are like really deep into the night and having all your friends in the room. And like if the room wasn't full, because there was only 8 people in the lobby in PGR3, but if the room wasn't full, right, getting people in and like pretty quickly like vetting people, and like if those people weren't like with like your crew's vibe, it was like, hey dog, like sorry man, then you kick them out. Right. And that was the joy of Xbox Live, was you had that control. And there wasn't a ton of structure in it. I mean, there was some structure in Project Gotham Racing, but like we would make stuff up. We didn't create it, but like cat and mouse became a thing where it was just like this mode where we would just like make up the rules. And like there were rules around cat and mouse, but it was a mode that wasn't supported by the game, but we would just like verbally like set these rules in the room. And eventually like cat and mouse became like an officially supported mode, like in the game. But it was just a great time. And I just remember that time. And actually, out of that, I met people who, we wound up being in this forum group called Casual Adult Gamers. And actually the people who are now my co-hosts on Enough to Keep Going, that's the weird like breadcrumb trail through which I met them, right? I met the guy who set up Casual Adult Gamers in a room in PGR3. He and I became friends. I joined Casual Adult Gamers, and the guys I podcast with today, right, we're all came out of that group. And so that's like now going on like a 20-year right history, like of how we all circled up and got together. So
I remember I remember the very first game I played online, like socially.
What was it?
Say it? It was Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
What, the Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare?
Yes.
Dude, that was a big one, man.
And that was the first time I got into Call of Duty. It was some guys from work were like, "Hey, try this game out," and I wasn't really.
I don't think gaming.
PQs.
I don't think gaming was ever the same after that. To be honest, I feel like
that
may have been
huge.
That may have been the one that shifted things, because I was like, this is different, and like the systems for Call of Duty felt like they have just evolved from that game.
Yeah, I think so. Now my jam, Rainbow Six Vegas 2, baby.
Dude, I loved that game.
Oh, that was
flipping upside down and shit.
That's still my favorite shooter of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it could be revisionist history. So the way I remember it is Call of Duty, like Call of Duty. I think it was not officially titled 4, like, but it was colloquially known as 4.
Correct.
But what I remember is Call of Duty Modern Warfare like introduced like systems, and it took the game out of like World War II era, like into modern times. But a lot of the things that are seated in our minds today as like representative of Call of Duty actually hit with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Because Modern Warfare 2 is the one that I remember, and again, I could be wrong, but in my head,
that one amped, dude. It turned it to 11, bro.
It was,
yeah.
That was like where people were making their own custom tags in the rooms, and I remember being a big pothead at the time, and like people were just making stoner profiles, and
then like you'd meet people and you'd form
wild.
clans, and you'd make like clan names and clan tags, and it was like
that's where like the Matrix just became like real and just kind of really sucked you in, bro.
Yeah, and it was cool for us because we're going from like we're gaming by ourselves in a room to
it's
gaming
true
with all these people all over the place.
And I can't remember if that's when you lost control of your own lobby. I think it was.
I think so.
But also that the big drumbeat shift was, that's the one that in my head I remember. That's when stats became persistent and they rolled out KD.
Yep.
That to me is when things really became toxic, right? When people started getting like badges and prestige, and yes, exactly. Like when it stopped just being like a joke and like talking smack on a basketball court, like, right? And it became, that's when it became just like, and that's in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I actually clapped out. Like, I played for like a few weeks, right? And then I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm not
played it
the rest
a
of this.
lot.
I remember, like, there was a formative time too, because I remember when KD, like, there would be people, it was like a lunch table thing where people would be like, yeah, my KD is like 1.2. It's like, who gives a fuck about your KD, bro? Like, you're taking this too seriously, man. Lighten up. And like, you had that shift of like, it was just a joke, like nobody cared, but then it started to like really like catch on, and people started to really take it seriously.
Competitive.
And then and then like that side of it won out, it seemed.
But it got to be, I mean, there's Call of Duty has had professional clans since big time, since Modern Warfare 2
absolutely. But it's just like that shift of like going from just playing and having a good time to like you're suddenly like a big deal because you have like a positive KD.
Well, and from there we get esports, we get live streamers, right? I mean, that's kind of what I attribute to like the period of toxicity in gaming, right? I mean, it's spread and it's got tendrils and it goes everywhere, but I'm like, you can literally like mark on a historical calendar right that point in time, and you can see like from 2005, the introduction of Xbox Live, up until that time. I'm not saying things were perfect. I mean, there were definitely people who would come into our lobbies, right, and spew racial slurs or, you know, say things. But then I said, we would vet them, right? And if they didn't click with our vibe, we would just boot them, right? And then you could I think you could tag people so that they couldn't get back into your lobby, right? Like, and then like I said, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, like you lose that ability. Right, KD gets introduced, persistent stats get introduced, prestige gets introduced, and things. We start losing the notion of finding the fun in video games, I think.
And then we started using the noob tube. Like, this guy's using the noob tube, bro. Like, it's like, it is a viable option, bro.
It is. Yeah, I remember I played a lot of Modern Warfare 2. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. I was pretty serious for a while, and I got good. And there were different clans, like we would join up and they'd be like, what's your KD? There were times when I had to improve my average kill death ratio to get into these different.
Dang, Crystal's a real deal.
Yeah, and I've been like that, like for the last few, like I came back with the 2019 Modern Warfare reboot, and played, like I came back like to play the campaign because I was like, okay, like they're bringing it back, right, that moment in time, right? And so let me play this, and then like it was out for, man, almost a year. Like, definitely was like the last 3 months before Cold War was coming out. And I'd played multiplayer like once, like, you know, and I was doing my thing as a live streamer at the time. And I actually won a match. And it was like this big epiphany. I was like, oh my God, I can actually play multiplayer in the modern era, right? And like for the last 6 years, like I've been, I wouldn't say hardcore, but I've played a crap ton of Call of Duty, like to the point where I've struggled, right, to find time to play single player games. But yeah, I mean, it's so my point is that all of what I say about attributing like the period of toxicity to Modern Warfare 2, like
you're still ingrained in it.
Yeah,
right?
It's not to say the game's not fun, right?
You can love it and hate it at the same time.
It's still so toxic. It really is.
That's the thing that modern social media doesn't understand, is like you can hold space for more than one thing.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and you can see both the good and the bad in a thing, right?
Absolutely.
And accept it, right? And you know, mini is the game that I say, I know that there are some bad aspects of this game, right? I know that, you know, in this era where we talk about black hole games and games as a service, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, right? You know, Destiny 2, you know, introduces some microtransactions in the store that are really egregious, right? There are some that are like way overboard, right? You know, but in Call of Duty, that's like Call of Duty. And again, I hate getting back to the business thing, but like, it was a few weeks ago. I was just looking at some data, and I'm like, hold on a second. Like, the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 Black Cell Battle Pass was like the number 23 top selling game on Steam. And I'm like, this is a battle pass that costs people cash. Like you can't buy the Black Cell battle pass with Call of Duty points, right? You have to pony up $30 of cash. This is on Steam, right? So it's paid. Like there's no way people are going to buy this. And then you realize that probably people who are buying the Black Cell battle pass probably buy it every season, right? So these are people who have paid $70 for Call of Duty because they're not playing it in Game Pass. And they're buying the Black Cell battle pass probably every 3 months. So by the time this whole thing is over, they've spent like $190 playing Call of Duty. And I don't have any problems. Like, look, if you love Call of Duty and like that's the way you want to roll, that's the way you want to roll.
Well,
but
Destiny
like
2 is even, I think, more. Oh God, they're going to come after me. But I think Destiny 2 is more egregious because it's like season after season after season, and then
This is what's crazy about gaming is like it's like the Big Bang, right? Where it started off so small and simple, and then it exploded, and then you had these different sectors of games, and then those games fractured off and fractaled, and it's like myself am like in one of these areas. It's like I'm a single player guy. I like story stuff, or I appreciate this aspect, and then suddenly like you're just like falling through the cracks while all this other shit is exploding, and it's so all over the place. Like we're like, for instance, like all of us are playing different things, right? We're into different things, it sounds like, which is crazy. But like there was a time where it was just like people were talking about just a few things, right? It felt that way anyway.
Well, now I feel like as the industry grows, we get more games in the same genre. We get more games that push genres forward. Like every so many years, you get bangers like Mass Effect or Baldur's Gate 3 that just completely try to push the industry forward by just setting a new bar. I mean, we see just the growth is just making things just so different in a good way, I think. But
yeah. It's just, I like what I'm saying is just like, there's so many subgenres of gamer now.
oh my God, it's like
You know
there's
what I mean?
AR,
It's
ARPGs,
like, I like metal.
WRPGs.
It's like, what kind of metal do you like? Do you like death metal, deathcore, metalcore?
Yep.
Do you like black metal? Dude, I just like metal, bro. Well, like that's just not a thing anymore. It's like being a gamer, there's so many subgenres of what kind of games people play.
I think
And
that's
some of
everything
them
now.
I'm like, I didn't even know you existed, bro. Like when you go and you're watching the Game Awards and it's like streamer of the year. I'm like, dude, I haven't heard of a single one of you yet. Like this is thriving. Like how do I not hear about this stuff?
Well,
as someone who's like big into games.
But we're also not, me personally, I don't just go randomly look on YouTube to find people. I don't watch people. Like if I just don't go to Twitch to randomly look at people, like that's just not my thing. So
right.
I mean, I don't keep up with, I wouldn't know which Kardashian's ass hit me in the face if it happened. Like I wouldn't be able to differentiate because I don't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah,
I do my own thing. So I don't think it's weird at all that you don't. I haven't known who they were for like 20 fucking years now.
It's like the thing that I have a difficult time, I think, conceiving is just how much stuff is out there that you just don't even know about, that you might want to know about even.
I think that's true with everything though. Like
absolutely.
That's why knowledge is a paradox, because the more you know, the more you realize how vast, like you don't
know.
You don't know.
And the only way to ever learn anything is to admit that you don't know it.
That is true.
Well, I think a lot of it too is kind of the effect you were talking about, Gurney. I feel like is a lot of the increased tribalism of games, and I think a lot of that again kind of hooks. You can draw lines to where that hooks it is tightly coupled to the notion of live streamers, right? Because live streamers, or at least that cultural phenomena on the face, kind of drive tribes, right? Because in general, the most successful live streamers, or at least what they tell you, is to be niche, right? Is to find your lane, right? And to stay in that lane. So like when I was a live streamer, I was a variety streamer, and it's incredibly difficult, right, to really achieve like a significant following when you're constantly playing like different types of games. I think the three of us are those types of gamers. Like we play lots of different types of stuff.
Yep.
I don't think we as readily identify with a tribe. But kind of the effect you're talking about, I think, is driven by that tendency for so many gamers today to identify with tribes. There are Souls people, right? There are JRPG people, and those people have kind of always existed to a certain extent. But like today, what I feel like is more prevalent is saying that is the type of gamer I am. Right? There are multiplayer competitive, right, people. There's the topic of the grind, right, which actually exists across a lot of different a lot of different genres. Diablo is absolutely a game that is full of grind, right? Like virtually choosing to not buy the horse, right, in Diablo 4 so that you can walk across the map and engage in the grind because it directly contributes to you earning XP, right, is a grind. But like the notion of the grind has been glommed onto, right, and made this aspect of like, you know, multiplayer competitive plus live streaming, right? But like it exists in so many other places. So I just think there's more and more of a tendency of people, like obviously there are battle royale people now. There are just kind of competitive gaming people, right? Who I talk about this demographic of gamer who, you know, plays maybe 5 different games, but they're all multiplayer competitive. And what they do is they play Destiny 2, right, for a little while. And then when they get tired of Destiny 2, like their group migrates over, you know, back to Call of Duty. And then they get bored with it, and they migrate over to Fortnite, right? And then the new season drops or a change is made, and they're like, this change is trash, right? And they migrate over to Apex, right? And they just do this rotation, which is great. Like, again, there's an aspect of this that I love, which is that there are so many different ways for people to come into gaming and enjoy gaming, and make gaming part of their you know, personality makeup, right? And the types of things that they enjoy. It creates some problems, I think. I push back hard on a friend of mine who, I think it was you know, Dr. Disrespect, who has damaged his own reputation now, right, beyond repair. And I think Shroud and maybe Ninja, but there were like 3 big live streamers like in a you know, playing together, and the things they mentioned were like, you know, games are kind of trash right now, and a couple of people like picked up that baton and kind of repeated it, and I'm like, you do understand that these guys only play like first person shooter, competitive, multiplayer, you know, games. I'm like when they're claiming games are kind of trash right now, they're not playing this cornucopia of other stuff that's available on the market. Like, so like taking their opinion as if it has any weight or bearing or is in any way credible or valid, just to me isn't, you know, doesn't hold any water. So,
well, like you said, tribalism.
God, I hate it so much, dude. I'm a nomad, man. I'm a nomad. I'm not loyal to anybody but myself. I go where my interests lie, you know?
So
I don't know what I am. I know that I don't really.
You're a spiritual nomad too, homie.
Well, I know that I don't really give a fuck about what other people think about what I play or what I like.
Nomad.
I like people, and if you're going to be a decent person, I'll be a decent person back. We won't have a problem, and I just like what I like, and I'm happy that you're happy. Whatever that is, I'm that one. I don't give a shit about like what's current or what group or what's popular. I don't fucking care. I've never cared. That's just not my thing personally.
Like, there is a difference though. So it's see, for me, like I like some things that are current, but it has to speak to me personally.
Yes.
Like, I'm not just going to pick up every game just because it's new. Like, I've played enough games to where I can judge and say, I like what this game is doing. I'm interested in this game. But there are also times where I have this blinder of where I can be like, yeah, this game's not for me as well. And I can pick it up and I can play it and I can be surprised by it just by giving it a chance. Like, for instance, like the new Assassin's Creed, everybody's talking shit about it. And then I picked it up because I'm like, well, I like stealth. So it's speaking to a specific part of me. I don't give a shit about the politics. I'm picking this up to play the game for the gameplay, which, like, it's a Ubisoft game. So it's not like it has incredible gameplay, But I do think at the same time, going off on a tangent, Ubisoft has introduced a lot of mechanics that it doesn't get a lot of credit for. Like Breath of the Wild has all the towers and camps and shit that it ripped straight from Ubisoft. Like Metal Gear Solid 5 is a Ubisoft game. If you look at it, it's got all these like camps that you're taking on.
Ubi
and it's
created a popular formula.
Ubi
for
created a
open world
formula.
games.
So they are good at formula games. And that's the thing is like, if you like what they're dishing out, then they're good games. But what they aren't is like innovative. But to me, like the new Assassin's Creed, like introduced that seasonal system, which I felt kind of got like swept under the rug with how cool I thought it was. Like there are 8 different seasonal states, and like to me, the game like changing from fall to summer to winter and all that stuff kind of kept that world feeling alive and dynamic. And I felt like people were so focused on the political aspect of it that like there's a black dude who's a samurai, and he's not really a samurai. It was a retainer. It's like, dude, I don't give a fuck,
Well,
bro.
that's
like,
because
I'm playing the game because it's fun. Like, do I get where you're coming from with some of the historical accuracy stuff? Yeah, but like you assassinated the Pope in Assassin's Creed 2, bro. Like relax. You know what I mean? Like we got to take it back to a place where you're playing games because they're fun. Like everybody wants to make everything a political statement these days.
Well, not everybody. It's the
a big chunk.
Well, we see it because
the drivers.
We spend more time online because we consume the gaming industry has a lot of stuff online. We're all playing different games and we're interested in getting each other's stuff. But there's 2 kinds of people that predominantly spend quite a bit of time online, people like us, and then fucking grifters.
It's true. And I realize I'm so ADD, so I'm going to bring it back here. So the conversation was just playing what's current and relevant. So that's why I played Assassin's Creed. It wasn't because it was new. It wasn't because I wanted to just play a new game. It was because its mechanics of being able to go prone and play stealthily, it was a way to experience that Ubisoft formula in a way that appealed to me as a gamer. And so like Expedition 33, I think it looks cool and great, and I will probably play it, but it's also not in my wheelhouse. Like for me, I'm playing the Doom games. I'm getting ready for Doom Dark Ages. So I'm going to pick up Doom, not because it's the new game, but because I've been looking forward to Doom for a long time. You know what I mean? So it's like, there are people who are experiencing new games for different reasons.
Oh, there's people now there's people that will have questions for me about a game that's 4 or 5 years old that I played. And that, you'll find these people that are just now getting a chance to play. And sometimes that happens with like Game Pass or stuff like that people finally get to play a game later. And it's always going to be a new game for somebody.
I love that.
And that's what's so cool about it. That's what's so cool about it.
There's so much to play right now that if you are a lover of games, you should have no shortage. It's like being a movie fan or a music fan. It's like, just because there's nothing new that's appealing to you, like open your brain, experience. Like if you like movies or horror movies, then you probably want to go back in time and watch some older horror movies. You're not just looking for the newest thing. Like as a gamer, don't you want to experience things that like paved the way, that were iconic, that changed culture? Like to me, if you really love games, you should be playing games from every era, not just new stuff.
Yeah, that's why I went back.
But even that's a gatekeeping statement of you should be. Do whatever you want, but I think that if you love games, you should broaden your horizon. If you're using the terms mid and games are trash right now, it sounds like that's a you problem. You know,
I think it's good advice to encourage people to be more open-minded with what they have
available to them.
Yeah. Well, that's the tension going on today, right? It's the be open-minded, like experience different things. I mean, again, going back to our first ever discussion, I talked about gamer know thyself, right? And then again, those evolutions, right?
ROI.
Right?
I remember
ROI blew my mind, and now I'm like, man, that's a concept's been around for a long time, but Logic dropped some logic.
After that recording that episode, I made my own EROI diagram, and it helped me better identify what I probably will like, what I might not like. I went back to play older games. That was huge for me as a gamer to go, oh, here's the 4 core things I need or I want.
You should write a book, Logic.
Well, what's so funny, right, is again, like at the moment in time where I mentioned that, I felt like I was pretty fixed in place, right? Where I could rattle off, Logic doesn't like these things. Right? Logic's not playing a JRPG, right? Just not going to do it. There were, I'm not going to play a Souls game. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to, like, I know, like, there's this bucket of things that I know that I like, and there's this bucket of things, like, and I had just recently passed through a time where I was in my life where I was going to stop agonizing over the fact that I didn't play these things, right? I was like, no, dude, I just don't like it. Like, I no longer feel like I have an obligation, right, to try these things out. It's super interesting and funny. Again, now that we have Clair Obscur Expedition 33. So last year, 2024, just on a whim, and I don't even know where it came out of or why I started it, but it became a thing. I was like, I'm going to finally like do JRPGs and just deal with the things that I say that I don't like about them. I don't like the exposition, right? That can often go on for like 2 hours. And I'm like, dude, come on. Like, geez. Like,
yes.
And this is in JRPGs have gotten exacerbated because there was this moment in time too, which I think is still going on, where NPCs in games and even like your main character, there's just so much kind of, and I think some of this has to do with the tooling and the automation that has happened that makes things like this easier for developers to implement. But where NPCs and even main characters, like, they're constantly in this loop of background chatter, right? And I'm never gonna, I always assert that The Last of Us Part 2 is a great game, a phenomenal game, maybe one of the greatest video games ever made. But I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, Ellie and Dina, just shut up, like, for a minute.
There is one game, actually 2. I will say there's 2 franchises, one specific franchise and one game that do that one thing you're talking about really, really, really well.
God of War.
That's a good one too, but I would say Mass Effect trilogy kind of taught people how to do that correctly, but the best I've ever seen it, Baldur's Gate 3.
I would actually say Guardians of the Galaxy too, which I know a lot of people didn't play. Like, and I'm not like ranking them or saying like this one's better, but like, and Guardians of the Galaxy had some specific.
That was a very good one.
Yeah, had some specific. In fact, a relatively innovative, revolutionary tool in terms of how they could dynamically generate dialogue in that game.
Ragnarok too, as he's saying, like specifically.
Well, so the thing I love about God of War that I feel it revolutionized was commentating on the game while you're playing it, but making it interesting. Because here's the thing. Kratos has the world's smartest man attached to his hip, and he is like this god of pure brawn, and he's got this child who's got innocence to him. So you have innocence and somebody who's not innocent, the world's smartest man on his hip, and all of them are commentating on what is happening, which adds like a weight to it, because Kratos will demolish somebody, and then Atreus is like, damn, you just like obliterated their whole home. Like, what are we going to do? And he's like, boy, it's just like, that's,
but they evolve.
Yes.
Like their conversation.
Yes.
Atreus
because Atreus's perspective impacts Kratos, and Kratos takes it into account to where it's got like this RPG story like elements, but it's not bombarding me with just useless dialogue. It's commentating on its world in an interesting way while also being very dynamic and keeping me in the game.
See, that's why I like. Oh, sorry. I thought you were.
No, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
It's Baldur's Gate 3 for me. The reason I love it is because you can take different companions with you, and you're going to get completely different dialogue.
And I love Baldur's Gate 3.
You're going to like, it changes the game. Like play sort of evil with like a bitchy Minthara and Gale, and she will just roast fucking Gale over and over.
Bro, I fucking love Gale. Gale gets way too much hate, dude.
Oh my god, Minthara is savage. Like,
is that the one that he had relations with?
Oh, that's Mistra. Minthara is Minthara's the drow at the goblin camp.
Yes,
but she says shit that's like, that's, I mean, laugh out
Savage
loud moments, and it's just like phenomenal. That's
yeah.
all the games that that's the way to do that shit.
Well, it's
100%.
crazy too. There's such a huge gap too. Like back to the whole like Mario conversation at the beginning. There was no exposition. It's just a game driven by feedback and interaction. Whereas now games have gotten so complex where I think a lot of a game is judged by its exposition and its story these days, where that might even be like a side note in some games. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's, I mean, and that's where I go back to, like, you know, I'm going, you know, through this back and forth, like, where, you know, I was so hardcore, like, in the amount of time that I was spending on Call of Duty, you know, that I felt bad about not playing single player stuff, and I'm playing more single player stuff now, but I'm also like there are games, and you guys, I've talked to you guys before about my love of like vehicle simulations, right? There are games that, like, you know, there's that purity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my personal life, you know, there was a time where I rode motorcycles, like, and that's one of the reasons I fell in love with riding motorcycles, is you put that helmet on and, like, look, there's not time to, like, worry about, like, who pissed you off at work that day, or, you know, your problems you're having with your girlfriend or whatever. It's like you're on the bike, the visor comes down. It's like, okay, quite frankly, I need to focus on staying alive on this two-wheel vehicle, right, for the amount of time that I'm in transit, and it's that it captures that purity. The thing I was trying to put together about JRPGs and Clair Obscur is, like I said, I spent time last year making that journey, playing lots of JRPGs. I played Unicorn Overlord, and in a lot of these names I've forgotten because I've gotten rid of my consoles, but I think Erudian or
Etrian Odyssey.
Etrian Odyssey. I think that's by the guys who made Suikoden 1 and 2.
I don't want to give any facts.
Ayuden Chronicle. Ayuden Chronicle. That's what I'm thinking of. And a few other JRPGs. Metaphor Refantasio and Shin Megami Tensei 5. I played whatever
lots of heavy hitters.
The relight. Yeah. So I was introduced to a lot of these things. It's super funny right now because Clair Obscur Expedition 33 leans very heavily on those mechanics in that combat do loop, and like your need to understand it, of like how you kind of manage time and really action points as a resource, and kind of go back and forth between offense, defense, buff, healing, right? And like dude, if I hadn't learned and been exposed to that paradigm last year, I would be completely lost in Clair Obscur right now, and it would not be appealing to me at all.
Then I should probably not try it. You just
No, but you played Baldur's Gate 3, which is pretty damn complicated.
Very complicated, and I almost was so overwhelmed that I never got through it. But I do not click with JRPGs.
But that's the interesting thing. I think both of you guys are bringing up great points. Is we're at a time where genre bending has become such a thing, to where like pure genres are like few and far between these days, I think. So hearing those words like JRPG, there's almost like a thing of like, I know what a JRPG is, but some JRPGs are not what you think they are. For example, I'm not a fan of JRPGs, really, but
me either.
Give me an Atlas RPG like a Persona, and the way that they spin it makes me love it, because it is so interesting that I am in it for the story. But I feel like the problem that I have with a lot of JRPGs, they get very tropey. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm not interested in the story that you're telling, because I've heard it a million times, and you're not doing anything that is making me sucked into your world. And like, it's just a lot of grinding. It's a lot of menu stuff. So I need some substance to go along with that cool stylization. And in my opinion, Atlas does that well, which it seems like the Expedition 33 is an interesting game for that, because it is a would you classify it as a JRPG, because it's French, isn't it?
It's, man, I wouldn't classify it as a JRPG, just because I'm very clinical and academic about those things, and so it's a French story, so I couldn't. I saw somebody
with JRPG elements,
JRPG, right? They use the French like spelling. So, it is. I mean, it's a term. It's a term. I would just call it a turn-based RPG.
That's fair.
But the a lot of the combat mechanics are very. You can see where it leans on the DNA of like an Atlas style game, which to me is not unique amongst JRPGs, but is very hyper specific, right, in their style of how they kind of put that whole combat package together in JRPGs. And then there's some flares of innovation right in there, of like not necessarily innovation, but like just where they're doing some things differently. You know, with the characters. And
I heard the story just feels like it's got some heft and some substance to it.
It's it appeals to me personally because one of the you know, I have my handful sets of likes of like literary mechanics and like movie storytelling and world building, and one of the huge things with this game for me is it's told in a fictitious world, but it feels very much like a period film.
Okay.
It heavily has Victorian influences, which is just one of my favorite like eras, right, to tell a story in, right, from a movie perspective or books or comic books or anything like that. It definitely treads on kind of like a steampunkish kind of feel to it, which again is a heavily Victorian influence type of thing. I think one of the big differences why I don't see it as a JRPG, and I say it leans on the Atlas stuff, but then it makes some differences, is one of the big differences between this and like a Persona game and an Atlas or other Atlas game is in an Atlas game, if you are really great at offense, you can get away with getting through most encounters with enemies without leaning heavily on defensive moves. And so you know, very often like characters in Atlas games will have a magic power or whatever that like will raise everybody's defense, right, by 30%, right, for 3 turns, right, or will allow somebody to defend any attack, right, for 1 turn or whatever. In Clair Obscur, the three mid-turn kind of defensive maneuvers are parry, dodge, and jump.
On turn-based?
On turn-based. And so the way the mechanic works is when the enemy attacks, whenever any enemy attacks, every turn, all the time, you have the ability to parry, like I said, parry, dodge, or jump. There are encounters you come up on where you cannot get through that encounter, not only without not using those actions mid-turn, but especially not parrying. And I want to say I can't remember right now if you can do a counter with a dodge. I think you could only do a counter with a parry, and so you would like to try, and parry is actually harder to pull off in the game. You would like to try, you're incentivized to try in your head, like not by the game, to maybe try and get away with just dodging an enemy's attacks, right? But there are mini boss battles and boss battles that you come on that you're not going to get through them if you don't learn how to parry, so that you can pull off the counter and get like that massive damage that happens mid-turn, right? Which it's like it's an additional, it can be an additional like 500-600, right, 700 points of damage that adds on to, right, when you go on the offensive during your own turn. So
I feel that way about JRPGs in general, which is why I just don't care for them.
This is also this is an interesting point, because the way that we process games that we haven't played yet, right? We just have to kind of rely on the marketing and what people say to us. But what you're explaining of like parrying in a JRPG, that is something I've never heard before. Like, so when you're parrying, can an enemy just throw an attack at you at any time? Because it's turn-based,
Bloodborne's
right?
a JRPG, and you parry in that.
No. This is turn-based. That's what I mean.
Okay, turn-based.
You know what I mean?
Sorry.
Yeah, no. What happens is like it's turn-based, so it's you go, I go, you go, I go, right? It's a little Atlas-like in terms of characters will get scheduled for their actions based on like their speed or agility or whatever computation the computer makes. So everything is not like you necessarily uniquely like all 3 of your characters go and then the enemies go, right? There's sometimes going to be some interstitial
Yes.
Like 2 of your characters go, and then one of theirs goes, and like that. But what will happen is anytime an enemy, it's their turn, is any attack that they make, you can parry, right?
Oh,
That's interesting.
So it's like it's their turn, and your count. It's like rock paper scissors kind of a deal. Like they're throwing something at you, and you have to counter it, like by jumping, dodging, or parrying.
Yes. Yeah. And then you'll do your turn, right? And so when you dodge, parry, or jump, that doesn't cost you any action points in your turn, right? It's just a free action you're able to take mid-turn, right, during their turn. And then when it's your turn, right, then you have your action points, and you can take, whatever actions.
That sounds pretty innovative.
That is innovative. There's like a level of like real timeness.
It's Western teams making their own version of a JRPG. It sounds like
a bit maybe. There's some risk and gamble in there too, right? So like I said, pairing's more difficult, but if you can pull off a counter, like there are, like I said, there's they're not boss battles because boss battles are mandatory, right? There are, I'll call them mini boss battles, which is a bad description, I think, but there are these enemies you can encounter. They're not required. You can go through paths to get off a level without going through them. Because I actually, like, the first one that I found, I actually defeated a boss and then had to come back to where that enemy was. When they pull off their attack, they are one-hit kills. When I say one-hit kills, again, that's a bad description. So every enemy most enemies in the game will typically have 3 different types of attacks, and each type of attack has its own kind of rhythm to it, right? It's very Souls-like. In terms of I'm trying to figure out a good way to describe it.
This sounds like a Gurney game. I'm just going to say it.
I mean, it really does. It definitely does.
This sounds like a Gurney game.
Like it's something that is fresh. It sounds like
it doesn't quite have the difficulty of a Souls game, obviously, because I'm playing it. but it's in that motif, right? And so you will get some enemies that'll attack on like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then you get some other enemies that are like one that was tough for me to learn how to parry. The reaction paradigm that I was using, which is, okay, like the moment I see them go in motion, hit parry, right? This is one enemy that the moment it goes in motion, then you have to delay another half second, because as they swing their weapon, the start of their swing is really slow, and then it accelerates.
That's very from Softy, because it's always precision timing and about like memorizing the moves and countering.
Right. So you've been describing like the defensive style of it. How do you attack?
Yeah, so during your turn, you typically have 4 offensive oriented actions that you can take. Every character has a ranged weapon, and so you can pull the left trigger and aim like you can in most games, and then fire, right? And there are some enemies, aerial enemies,
that are weak to shots,
that are basically only really vulnerable to shots, because if you try and attack them or use your magic powers on them, they will almost always dodge. So you have to fire at them. At a certain point, you will start encountering aerial enemies with explosives. And if you shoot the explosive, then when that explosive goes off, it does damage to them as well as any other enemy forces that that they appear with. Then so you can either fire your weapon, you can use items. So again, it's very Atlas-like. You can use items, which your items that you start off with are like a healing elixir, an energy elixir, which grants extra action points to somebody in your party, or a revive elixir in case one of your characters gets knocked out. Then your third option is to use basically your magic powers. And I won't get into the description of how magic works. Super complex.
Magic powers. I was just about to ask you, how does magic work in this game?
It's
you don't have to though. Unless you want to.
What I'll say is basically over time, you have a progression tree and a skill tree, and so you learn new additional types of powers. at any one time you can have up to 6 different like magic powers available, right? And so when you click into magic, you'll have 6 magic attacks. Each of them costs different action points, and so over the course of combat, you do things like, for instance, like when I was saying that parry, dodge, and jump. Like when you successfully avoid attacks, that adds action points right to your character in the next round. And so different magic powers cost different magic points. Your more powerful magic may cost 5, right? So you do things to try and build this up. And then some magic.
So it's theoretically you could just play defense a couple rounds and build up a powerful attack, kind of.
You could. You generally like the most I've seen magic powers cost so far is like 5 action points. So you don't need to go to that extreme. But there are some action powers. There are some magic powers that also have I'll just call it a charge level associated with it. So the main character, Gustav, has this thing called Overstrike. And Overstrike costs like 4 or 5 action points to pull off. But Overstrike also has a charge level associated with it. And so if you execute Overstrike when your charge level, which is 0 through 10, when your charge level is weak, then Overstrike doesn't do that much. But if you do an Overstrike when your charge level is at like 8, 9, or 10, it's devastating. Like I'm at level 9 or 10 now, and when I pull off an Overstrike when I'm at the charge level like 8, 9, or 10, it's like 2,500, 2,600 points of damage. Right.
This is the thing I notice when people talk about JRPGs specifically versus like WRPGs, which are more my thing. The difference is when you're talking about a JRPG and the mechanics, there's always an and then. And then.
Yeah.
And then I'm over here with my WRPGs like no and then. No more.
It gets deep.
With the exception of Baldur's Gate 3,
which is wild. That's like that's wild because it's extremely complicated.
I'm going to be honest
with you.
Extremely complex. I have a lot of hours in Baldur's Gate 3, and I still don't. I'm not. Yeah.
You beat it though, didn't you?
6 times.
What the? Yeah. 6 times.
Yeah.
Jeez,
well, but I got so many different like.
I mean, bro,
there's so many
if you can play Baldur's Gate though, I feel like you could play. Any of the other
there's several classes that I have not mastered. There's items
that doesn't take away that you can't do those things. You beat the game 6 times. Well,
that's why I'm playing so much, is because I'm trying to. There's so much to learn. It can be very intimidating and overwhelming. I love
that you can use the player's handbook essentially from D&D and look up all that stuff, and it is like pretty much the same.
And sometimes you have to.
I actually didn't. I was completely.
Do you have a player's handbook, like a Dungeons and Dragons player's handbook?
I don't, but like there are some things that I'm going to cite it as a negative. I don't think it takes away from the game at all, but like you are presented things that like aren't explained to you, like spells, right? And like you'll be looking at these spells and you'll be like, what the fuck does that do? Right? And and finally I get so frustrated by it. I was like, I just gotta go like find the online like player's handbook and like look this stuff up, because like you don't even know how to use it, right? Or what effect it's having.
I don't think
you might not even have to use it. That's what's brilliant, I think, about it is a lot of it is just role play. Like, this is what my character, let's do this because it's cool, not because it's going to win the battle, but because this is how I want to win the battle. You know,
that is cool. Like, the player agency and freedom is so massively huge.
Like the thing that blew my mind with that game was when I saw somebody put an owlbear. Like they made a really tall platform out of stacking boxes or crates. They stacked crates, and then the owlbear jumped, and they cast it in large on the owlbear and made it big, and its weight impacted how much damage it did to the character by falling.
Some people do that.
I'm like, holy shit, dude, that's wild.
It is. I don't think I've ever actually, I'm positive I have never played a game and made as many mistakes as I did in Baldur's Gate 3.
Save scum, massive. Right? You just save until you get it right.
No, it's not that. It's just not understanding the mechanics, not knowing how this works, not understanding like, why does Shadowheart miss? Well, because this is a strength-based fireball and she doesn't have high strength. So it's like,
yeah.
I didn't know how armor worked. I didn't know that dexterity, like, it's just, that's why I play
There's
it
a
so
lot
much,
of
is
rules.
there's so
There's a
many
lot of
things to
rules.
learn.
Yeah.
And every time you learn, you get better. And that's why I like it. And
That's
the
what's
story's
cool.
just, I've never gotten the same story twice, not even remotely close.
Man.
So we've gone a little bit over, which is fine. It's been a great conversation. We've gone all over the place, and that's great. I
It'll
do
be
want
interesting to see how you market this episode.
I do want to ask, go off script, but also ask a question that's a little bit related to our original theme, but also one that should be kind of short for people to answer. So, Crystal, I want to ask you, out of all the games that you considered for tonight's discussion, is there a character in a video game that you have super identified with, been very attached to?
Yes.
What I want to use, that you have experienced some kind of connection to.
I know the answer before she says it. I'm not going to say it though.
Oh, I want you to say it. I want you to say, because I want to know what you think.
It's the sexy red mama from Baldur's Gate 3.
I was going to say this story.
What's
Karlach.
her? That's exactly
I
it.
was not going to play BG. Well, it wasn't on my radar because I've never played D&D, although I want to. I don't know CRPGs. I don't have a PC. I was like, nah, it's turn-based. I don't really like turn-based. And everybody's like, it's that good. And so many people reached out and said, there's this one character and you and her are so similar. Like, you're alike.
Mhm.
And I just, that first journey of getting through the game and seeing, is this how people see me, made me so emotional, because she's like the greatest fucking character ever. And I love her so much. And like,
Aw.
oh my God, Karlach. Karlach is like one of the greatest fucking characters that like exists. And I love her. I love her.
Humble brag talking about yourself.
It was such a humble brag. I was just, because I was playing it. I remember, like Ziggy would jump on and help me out. I was like, this is amazing that people see me this way. Like, this is just,
It's
this
true.
is fucking
Like,
incredible.
there's so much zeal and so much life, and there's intellect, but it's also balanced by groundedness. Like, she's a human. She's not a human, but you know what I mean. There's a level of down to earthness with her. She shoots straight with a big heart.
And that's for me, what the writing in a video game is good, when I feel that human element. Like, this feels human. This feels emotionally right with what's happening.
Absolutely.
So how about you, Gurney? Same question.
Bro, that is a tough question. I would love to hear it. What do you think?
Well, hear me out.
Okay.
Kratos.
Interesting.
Not because Gurney does have, as obviously, if you know him well, you'll know that he's got a very soft and loving and empathetic side, but he also has this very tough and rough side. And he can get, like, sometimes he's grumpy Gurney, but like he can be very like protective and defensive of the things that he loves, and he very much loves his family. But like, Gurney kind of goes, he's always on a growth. Like, that's what I love about Gurney so much, is he goes, oh, I've hit this plateau as a human being. How can I grow? How can I keep blossoming? And that's what Kratos just historically does, is like the growth you see him go through with Ragnarok. Just, that's how Gurney approaches things. He's always growing and learning to become this better person, this different person.
That's actually really sweet. Like the Ragnarok version of Kratos, I definitely can identify with, because like you can see how he doesn't see at first. He doesn't really see how he's impacting Atreus until he starts getting some results, and then he's like, "Oh, my actions are affecting things. Maybe I should incorporate some different ideologies and grow." And then you start to see Atreus really start to embody. But it's also, he's not just embodying things from Kratos; he's embodying things from his mom, which is really cool. And like, being married and having a daughter has actually really helped me a lot, because that love that I have for each of them is probably what keeps me growing the most, of like seeing how my actions can affect my daughter. Or
just people around you. Like, you're
or
very
just
good
people
at
around me, but my daughter specifically, because I love her more than I love most people. So that like that anchors me. But it's also amazing because all of that growth that I have in being a parent also comes back to games. And I'm like, I see games with a different lens from that perspective too. So I like that. Kratos
I think that's why you're
that's a good
Kratos, because
answer.
every time, and you can see it's just a pattern of the way that Gurney acts and interacts with people. He'll always go through and interact with people, and then you see him come back later to like analyze the conversations and self-reflect.
Yeah,
And that's a
sometimes
very
I can be
Kratos
like,
thing.
man, fuck you. And then I'll be like, I'm sorry, bro, that was wrong.
Or no, just in general. I think you always try to circle back and see, like, how did I make people feel? How did this discussion go? What did I learn from it? So forth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's a
Logic, what
fair
about
statement.
you?
Man, like Ernie said, like it's a struggle. I like when you answer that question in comic books, like I'm very like Captain America, Martian Manhunter, the Vision, and the common thread between the Vision and Martian Manhunter in both Marvel and then DC is like they are these non-human characters that are able to articulate and because they're not human are actually better suited to capture and articulate the human condition and the manner in which humans should deal and process or do deal and process with things like better than human beings can, right? Because they're coming at it from this alien perspective. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, yes, there's nothing like that in video games. And then like with Captain America, it's like I resonate with that character. Like the things I said to you today, Crystal, were very much kind of like soundbite sayings that are associated with that character, right? That like the duty of heroes is to protect the people who don't have the ability to protect themselves, right? That's like a Captain America kind of thing. And in one of his statements in one of his comic books is like during this big event is you when everyone disagrees with you you plant yourself like a tree by the river of truth, and you tell everyone else no you move, right? Like this is just right. And my wife and I are watching Jack Ryan tonight. And he's another character that resonates. Like, look, I get it. Like, there's politics and there's this and what's good for us. Like, but this is the right thing to do. Right. And that's kind of resonates with me. And so I can't like, I thought like, is that Master Chief? Is
Okay,
that
we're gonna Gurney and I are going to we're gonna discuss.
Dude, I'm
this.
sitting here. I'm trying to analyze.
Me too. I'm trying to figure out like.
I mean, it can be a lot of different characters, but I feel like Logic is cooler than any of those people, to be honest with you.
Let's circle back to Baldur's Gate 3 for a minute.
Okay.
Who is a very well-spoken, confident guy who loves to read and loves to learn, and he's very kind and soft, and he would sacrifice himself to save everyone?
Right. It's got to be Withers. Just kidding.
Gale.
Gale.
I can see.
I can see that. Yeah. I can see that.
I'm trying to think of. That's a hard one. It's a hard character because I don't. I
mean, okay, it's a JRPG character, but for me, it would be someone like Auron. You know Auron from Final Fantasy X?
I've never.
So he's just like this dude that is just. You don't know who Auron is?
I don't play Final Fantasy.
I don't either.
Oh shit, man. Anyways, he's like this dude that holds space for just a lot of the different ideologies, but he's like, man, I don't even know how to explain it because I was hoping you would get it. But can you pull up a picture? Auron,
okay,
Auron from Final Fantasy X.
This is because
he's just like Auron. He's like a gray Jedi kind of a deal, where he's extremely wise, always knows what to do. He's keeping the team together, but he's also like, I don't know,
a complex character.
Yes, definitely.
A former warrior monk. Monk would like perpetuate that ideology that Logic does kind of want.
A warrior monk, right? Like spiritual, but also a warrior. Like that's kind of cool.
And Logic's a warrior because when we play like shooter games together, he'll like whoop whoop bounce off car hoods and do funny little shit all over the place.
I will say though,
I'm feeling this. I'm
I
feeling
like
this one.
Gale. That's a great answer because Gale's one of my favorite people in Baldur's Gate 3 because he is smart, he's charming, and he's one of the only dudes in a game where I was like, sure, I'll sit and watch the sunrise with you. We can do a little bro thing.
And he says stuff that's deep, but it looks like Auron does too. I'm looking up Auron quotes.
Yeah.
He could be either one of these people, honestly.
Dude, I wish you knew who Auron was.
I do too now.
He's literally like one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters. I'm not a big Final Fantasy guy, but I love Auron. And Sid. I don't know.
I think Auron might be the better choice on this one.
This thing might be a good fit because I like bereft of like the type of character that I would glom onto. Like I was picking like some other sides of my personality, right? And thinking about like Nathan Drake or Geralt. And in Geralt, like I think of that because like in The Witcher 3, I would kind of often role play as like this Witcher, but who also just like did things like, but was it like I wouldn't select the pay me option, right? Whenever they killed like a monster, right? I would always pick the option that was like, had to be done. This was the right thing to do, that type of thing. So,
bro, I took that money. I was like, I'm not doing this shit for free. Right. Okay. But there were a few, like I let the guy keep the money for the dowry for his daughter. I felt bad about that. I was like, okay, all right, you can have the money, but just, dude, you're a Witcher, bro. You got to get paid for that shit.
Isn't it so funny that people's real life morals can translate into video games by the decisions they make in RPGs? I'm so fascinated by that.
Well, it's an interesting discussion because like the Geralt thing, like if I excise the Geralt thing, like you and I have talked about this before, Crystal, like that is what you do. Like, whereas like I don't, like I will often do like the opposite of what I would normally do. Right. Or I would just pick like, okay, I'm going to role play like this thing. Right.
That's what I do. I actually make different characters and I decide ahead of time what personality. And there's always a me, like this person's me.
So you have
I
a
do
code
what's organic
that
to
you
me.
stick to with that character.
Yep. And then like I always do an evil run, and then I create this person. Like I give them names, they have backstories, and then that person is who I'm living as when I make all these decisions, so that it's authentic to that character. And what
that is a topic I want to get into another night, which is talking about kind of the fiction that we weave right in our own heads, right around games, right?
Gale.
Fiction that we weave.
and whether or not that fiction was provided for you to platform off of, or whether or not it was a game like Joust, right? But you had a story in your head, right, going on around it,
or like Cat and Mouse and PGR.
Okay, so yes, that's what I'm hearing is that's a future episode that we're doing. That's great. Let's hear it.
Absolutely,
I love it.
So I do want to go ahead and wrap things up for tonight. Crystal, CSmnithShine, thanks so much for coming through. I appreciate you. Gurney, thanks so much. Great conversation tonight. Really like the different directions that it went. Like I talked earlier in the episode about Gurney's ability to put that piece of steak in his mouth and
ADD,
taste the malted parts of the beef. That's kind of where we headed tonight. And that's exactly the kind of thing I was looking for. So I really appreciate it. For anybody who happens to watch this is a pre-recorded episode that's going to go up on the Rounding Off Infinity channel on YouTube. So thanks so much for anybody who happens to swing through and watch that. Please feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I don't monetize, but it's a way for you to just get an alert via YouTube and a notification whenever I post new content. So that way you don't have to keep coming back and checking. The system will just tell you about it. So I am not sure when we're going to record another episode, but I will definitely post some notification about that on the YouTube channel or on Twitter or wherever. So once again, my name has been GameLogIQ from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube. One of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going weekly video games podcast on the E2KG network. We will be live tomorrow night, as we usually are, at 8 p.m. on Sunday nights, Eastern time. So until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe out there, play the games that you like, come here to talk to us about the games that you love. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.
Bye.
Bye.